Being mad at Mother Nature for the California drought might be the easiest thing to do, but it wouldn't be the right thing to do. There's a lot more at work here than a lack of condensation in the skies. It's also about farmer battling farmer and the government itself finally being nailed for doing everything wrong in preparing this state for a disaster. Our guest is president of Scott Valley Protect Our Water. It's a small but vocal group of citizens fed up with the state and the feds. Located in a very small agricultural valley at the very top of the state of California in the northeastern part of the state. Mark Baird is on Midpoint. Mark, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
How frustrating is it? I mean, because you sit in a very unique area of the state. It's not one that people think of right away when they think about all the water dangers. They think about Los Angeles, San Francisco, certainly other parts of Southern California. But how frustrating is it to you folks there because of the effect that all of this, the government certainly, and a lot what they've done with water, is having on you?
Well, California is broken. It's one of the most dysfunctional governments in the United States of America today. But just as an example, about 100 or 150 of us tomorrow are going out to protect a road while one of the ranchers goes into the river and channels water to his diversion so he can water his crops. And we're forced to do that because the government of California has a one-size-fits-all government that they apply to everyone unequally, I guess, if you will.
So in essence, if you will, are you having then the farmers there to steal the water? And I'm not using that in a sense of theft. I'm using that in a sense of the state of California has forced you folks to take such drastic action.
No, not at all. We have the rights to the water, the legally adjudicated and appropriated water rights. However, with the programs that the state of California imposes upon everybody, the fines, fees, permits, projects, programs under which they think we're forced to operate, we have to protect ourselves and our ability to take the property that already belongs to us. But it's certainly a different story in Southern California where literally communities are stealing water from one another because their wells are going dry.
So let me focus again on the state itself, because you started off by telling us it's just one of the worst run states in the nation, and certainly there's a lot of people who would agree with that, mostly Californians. But here we see the drought, and everybody is led to believe, we keep hearing from meteorologists, climate change, everything else. It's all about Mother Nature here. But let's drill down to the reality here. It's the fact that the state hasn't run the water for years properly. There's constantly farmers against farmers. There's all sorts of ideas and plans, money that hasn't been spent. So this is more a state issue than it is a Mother Nature issue, correct?
Yeah, it is. Largely, it's as much a management crisis as it is a water crisis. I mean, we have tree ring data, and we have pretty old trees in California. You can look at the tree rings and go back 1,500 years. Mega droughts are common in the western United States. You have to have the you have to have the political will to manage the water and build storage so that you can release the water in times when you need it.
So who failed? When we talk about having the will, is that Jerry Brown? Is it Schwarzenegger before him? Where did this all start? Who gets the blame?
Well, it started probably 40 years ago. There hasn't been any new water storage built in California in at least 35 years. And for example, the governor of California in 2013 allowed almost 1 million acre-feet of water to go to the ocean without serving one human being, so that in 2014 he could cry broke, cry drought, and get his $7 billion water bond passed. And by the way, how much of that money is going to be spent on water storage? Probably none of it. And he's already borrowing $780 million of that $8 billion, amortized over 40 years, for environmental water, so he can purchase water to send it straight to the ocean this summer. One big problem with that: the water will be gone in 30 days, but the money has to be repaid over the next 40 years.
When you and your fellow residents hear the governor, Jerry Brown, saying that I didn't shower this morning, which he seems to be very proud of when he says that in order to help save water, I can't even imagine the level of idiocy that you must think is being spewed out, and not only that, but the anger that you've got.
Well, I mean, Governor Brown's a liar. He's one of the biggest liars in politics, right up there with Michael Bloomberg. So those kinds of things really don't surprise us. It's just another aspect of the dysfunctionality and lack of representation in California government for rural counties and rural communities since the Reynolds versus Sims decision in 1964 transferred what Willie Brown likes to call all just power to the cities. And Willie says that all of us folks up here just need to learn to obey.
How do you feel when you hear things such as the toilet to tap program. This is the way to save California. Start using sewage, maybe even start using desalination plants. That's the only way out for California.
You know, the way I look at that, it's very simple mathematics. You know, Governor Brown has a society in decline, and he dictates that the society continue to decline. But what he fails to realize is that simple algebra is still simple algebra. In other words, 40 million people using 2 gallons of water a day is the same as 20 million using 4 gallons a day. You can't conserve your way out of debt. You have to increase your capacity. A sewer to tap is a program that cities should use. They're starting to do that in San Diego. Terminal Island in Los Angeles has been doing it. You know, it's impossible for bacteria to chemically bond with hydrogen and hydrogen oxide, which is what water is. So those programs are useful, but they're not the answer. The answer is management and mitigation, store water, rainwater catchment, groundwater recharge ponds, all of the things we in Northern California know how to do, we've been doing for years, and also learning to live within our means.
Unfortunately, as you have pointed out and many others have agreed, it simply is a problem with the California government that can't seem to get its act together and hasn't for a lot of years. Mark Baird, I want to thank you for giving us some insight here. We'll check back again and hopefully things will work out better. Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you, sir.
My pleasure. We want to ask you, because if you live in California or not, here's the simple question. Is the government failing to act on the California drought? Is this simply the government's fault? Not take Mother Nature out of this, but is this something that the government could basically cure if they wanted to? Send your comments to Newsmax TV /comments. We'll talk about them here. Stay with us, because this is the only program that questions everything. This is Midpoint.